Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Rabbit and Red Reviews. I'm Eric, and today we are going to review Jefferson's Ocean Aged at Sea Kentucky Straight Bourbon. This is Voyage 16. So Jefferson's bourbon comes out of the Kentucky Artisan Distillery in Crestwood, Kentucky. And this specific Jefferson Ocean Aged at Sea comes from a line that they started back in 2012, where they were taking 6 to 7 year old bourbon barrels and putting the bourbon onto freight ships. And basically for 6 months, these ships are going back and forth across the ocean in different climates. I think they say that they cross the equator about 4 times on each voyage, and also, are touching 5 continents. So quite a story. We're gonna give this a taste and see if it's mostly marketing fluff or if it actually does make a difference in the quality of this spirit. I think the logic behind the aged at sea process is that while the bourbon is in these barrels, moving back and forth across waves, it's the bourbon is moving, and therefore more of it is getting in contact with the wood of the charred oak barrels. So maybe that will impart more flavor into the bourbon in a shorter period of time. You also have temperature variations and wind variations, which will cause the wood to expand and contract, which also may impart some uniqueness to this bourbon. And then also the fact that it's touching ocean air. So there's some talk that there will be a little bit of brininess and saltiness you'll find in this bourbon because of that. So the most recent ones come with an entire ship's log. I won't entertain you with the entire story that they have in here, but it does talk a bit about where this bourbon in particular has been, and the different weather conditions and stuff it's quite a prose. So feel free to check these out online. I know that the Jefferson's website also has plenty of stories about the different voyages. So enough about that. Let's see what's in the bottle here. So first on the nose, getting a sweetness. The corn definitely coming through in the nose. You can definitely tell that this is a high corn mash bill bourbon. It's very nice. There's that nice sweetness. You're also getting some level of spice, kind of your typical bourbon spices, baking spices, cinnamon. There's definitely a nutmeg quality to this. There's also like a bright fruitiness. I don't want to say citrus, but more like apple. Caramel apple. This nose is nice. It's a rather light nose. It's definitely not heavy. You're not getting those really, really deep, dark fruit qualities, or dark caramel or dark chocolate or anything like that you get off of a lot of bourbons. It's definitely a bit lighter. So on the palate, immediately on the palate, you're getting that sweetness. It's vanilla, a light caramel, light toffee, maybe even a little bit of a slight peanut brittle type flavoring. But the fruits really show up big time. Pear and apple definitely coming in, and as it develops, it's got a pretty good development. You're not getting a lot of spices in the development. It's they're there, but not really pushing themselves through. And finish is medium. You're kind of left with some of the fruit flavoring, a bit of that sweetness that I mentioned in the beginning, kind of the corn whiskey. All in all, it's pretty light on the palate, but actually quite good. This is interesting. This is definitely an interesting bourbon. I am not picking up any saltiness or brininess from the supposed sea air that's been going through these barrels on the ship. But I'll let you know on the next sip if I pick up any more of that, or any of it at all, rather. Yeah, as I said, it's a somewhat full mouthfeel, but it's not. It's definitely more on the lighter side, so medium on the mouthfeel. You're definitely getting some oak. So maybe this is from the, the motion of the waves pushing the bourbon back and forth across in these barrels. The oakiness is standing up a bit here in the palate and the finish. Getting a hint of cherry as well. Cherry and apple are definitely the fruits that I pick up the most in this. Yeah, we'll see if we can get a little bit of saltiness out of this yet with a little bit of water. As I mentioned, this is bottled at 45%, so I'm not going to put too much water in this. So on the nose, the toffee and apple, cherry, even pear note is definitely getting brighter. A little bit of water does tame a bit of that oakiness that I was mentioning on the palate. But yeah, fruits are a little bit brighter, but nothing changing significantly on this. So one more. Yeah, the spiciness is actually kicked up a bit more with the water. So you're definitely getting some of those barrel spices and baking spices at the end. There it is, a little bit of dark chocolate coming in. Still, I wouldn't say I'm getting any brininess or saltiness that's of measure. But, all in all, this is a good bourbon. It's interesting. It's a little bit different than most of the stuff you'll find from a small batch bourbon. A bit lighter. The development is just in a different, takes a different approach than what you would normally get off of a lot of bourbons, if you know what I mean by that. So here's a quick look again at the presentation. Kind of got these old throwback bottles that are kind of cool looking. You can see on the back, if you look through it, it actually has all of the continents showing themselves in it. So this, this is interesting stuff. As far as a rating goes, I would want to give this a 3.5 and say that it's worth grabbing a bottle and definitely worth tasting at a bar. However, the one thing with this one is the price. A bottle of Jefferson's Ocean like this, this ranges anywhere from $70 to $80, $70 to $90. That's quite a hefty price tag for what you're getting out of this. They do have a cask strength, which I know can be closer to $100, but obviously higher alcohol level, which you'll get a higher amount of flavor, and maybe that saltiness will show up in that. So with the price point on this, I think I'm going to give this a solid 3. If you happen to come across this in a liquor store and they're selling it for on sale or a good lower than $70, certainly maybe even around 60 or less, it'd be worth grabbing a bottle. Definitely worth a pour at the bar. That'll give you a really good sense of this stuff, and might help you make a decision on whether or not you want to spend that kind of money on this. So all in all, the aged at sea approach that they've taken here is a pretty good marketing gimmick. It does seem to have had perhaps some influence on the flavor, but as far as bringing out the oakiness a bit more for this bourbon. But all in all, it's a solid pour, worth having a taste of, and if you find it for a sale price, worth grabbing a bottle. And you can't discount the fact that it's a cool story to tell, especially when you have friends over for this. You can tell them a little bit about this rather unique bourbon. Okay, so that'll be a wrap for this episode, and I hope to catch you all again on the next episode of Rabbit and Red Reviews. Cheers, y'all.